this is the outline for my talk today. What is the new normal? What is resilience? And I will talk a bit about this human performance and stress curve. I'll talk about the 5 pillars of resilience. And finally, I talk about how to develop a resilient mindset. Now, for those of us who are old enough, that's me. The first shopping malls in Singapore came up in the 1973. So the earliest shopping malls to come up were People's Park Complex, Katong Shopping Centre, and Golden Mile Complex. I remember going to People's Park Complex when I was a young boy, when it first opened. It was big and shiny and so many shops and so many things to buy. So following from that, shopping malls have become a big part of our life. Until now, we have the big shopping malls, the big, even more glamorous, more bright, more shiny, more colorful than the earlier malls. And you may recognize some of these malls, Ion, North Point City, which is just nearby the hospital in Yishun, Funan Center and VivoCity. And there are a lot more other malls, and some of them are situated within HDB estates. So it's really convenient for people to go to the malls, and it's become really a large part of our lives now. So there's been a change between 1970s, pre-1970s and now, that people are going to malls and eating places within malls, and it's a big part of our lives now, to the extent that this is how crowded a mall can be. And some of you may recognize that this is Marina Square, the escalator leading up to second level. Yeah. And shopping is so much a part of our life that we even have late night shopping. For example, in December 2018, they had shopping until 2 a.m. So before we had, so this is the current way that we are living our lives. But what did we actually do in the old days before the big shopping malls came up? And I found this illustrated book written by James Suresh, illustrated by Syed Ismail, about life in Singapore in the 1960s. And it brought back a very nostalgic feeling to me, because I grew up in the 1960s. Generally, there was no place to go out to. For leisure time, a lot of people sat at home in the balcony or veranda and just looked out at the scenery. If they needed to go shopping, there's the small provision shop. They might go fishing, and for entertainment, there is the street wayang that only happens a few times a year. Not like now, every night you can be watching Netflix. So this was life before the current era, with the big shopping malls and the cineplexes in the shopping malls. For those of you who like to find out more about this book, you can just scan the QR code, and it will bring you to an article talking about this book. So when COVID struck, what happened? The malls and eating places all became empty. So is this going to be the new normal? Are we going back to the old kampong times before we had the big shopping malls? So this is what happened 2 days after the circuit breaker was over. People started coming back to the malls, to the eating places, and you can see the long queue and the big crowds. And they are all wearing masks. And I hope in the picture it shows that they are adhering to social distancing, 1 meter between each person. But people are coming back to the malls the moment circuit breaker was over. And back to the eating places, you can see how crowded it is, queues forming to get into all the eating places. Yeah. And more recently, the Robinson closing down sale, can see the crowds and the queues forming. So what is the new normal? There will definitely be changes in the way that we do things, in the way that we live our lives. So these articles from the South China Morning Post writes about changes in the way that students will study, especially the students who have to travel abroad and study in another country. Yeah. Even within the own country, there will be changes in the way that students study, more home-based learning, not going to school, being scheduled to go to school so that you have different batches of students going to school so that you don't get crowding in the school. In terms of the way that we travel, that we socialize, that we shop, there are also changes. And finally, in the way that we work, there'll be changes. So the coronavirus pandemic will change the way that we work. Maybe more work from home, more video conferencing, things like that. What is the new normal? The new normal means adapting to changes in the world around us. And in the current COVID situation, it means adapting to live with a virus that is widespread, fairly contagious. The majority of the population at the moment do not have immunity. And people who are infected may not have symptoms, but can still spread it to others. And for patients who are more vulnerable, they may need to be hospitalized or even receive ICU care. So the new normal means there will be changes in the way that we travel, that we work, we study, socialize, shop, and dine out. And these changes are needed to minimize the spread of COVID. And this gives an overview of some things that may happen in the new normal that's needed to control the spread of COVID. Yeah. This is called the Swiss cheese model. You have different layers of cheese, different layers of protection. So each layer is like a Swiss cheese. Each layer is not perfect. There'll be holes in each layer. But if you have multiple layers, the holes may not line up. So that means even if some layers, there's a break in one layer, the next layer will prevent it. Okay. And some of these layers, if you can look at the slide, involves a lot of personal responsibilities on our part: physical distance, wearing masks, hand hygiene, avoid touching our faces, avoid crowded places. The next speaker for next week will talk more about the control measures to limit the spread of COVID. But this is just an introduction to what will be said next week, yeah. And what the new normal is going to be like. So the next section of my talk is on resilience. And what is resilience? It refers to an individual's ability to cope with stress, adversities, or setbacks. And this coping will allow the individual to bounce back and become even stronger after exposure to stress. And being able to bounce back and become stronger, this is called the steeling effect. It's like when iron is made into steel, it has to go through a process of heated in the fire, being hammered. But as a result of that process, the iron becomes stronger and more resistant to rust and corrosion. And in the East, the symbol for resilience is the bamboo tree. In a storm, the bamboo tree may bend down when the strong wind blows, but after the storm is over, the bamboo comes back up, grows straight and upright. Whereas a different kind of tree, an oak tree, may be strong and sturdy, but during a storm, branches may break or the whole tree may be uprooted. So the bamboo is actually a very good symbol of resilience. So what actually do we mean by resilience? Life actually doesn't come with a roadmap. There'll be a lot of uncertainties, a lot of twists and turns, ups and downs, and change affects people differently. And each person may have a different kind of thoughts, emotions, and feelings when a change occurs. In general, people adapt well to life-changing situations. And this is because of a quality we call resilience. So resilience is the process of adapting well in the face of any changes, adversity, trauma, tragedies, threats, or stress. It involves the ability to bounce back from these difficult experiences. And it can also involve personal growth after going through the change. And while some of these events that affect us may be difficult and painful, they don't have to determine the outcome of our lives. And there are many aspects of our life that we can actually control and modify. And becoming more resilient helps us to get through difficult times and also allows us to grow and develop into a better, stronger person. A lot of it involves a perspective, your perspective. Now, if you look at this picture, what do you see? Most people would see a date tree, a desert landscape, rocks, no water. So they'll say, oh, this is a lifeless date landscape with a date tree. But what happens if you were to take a step back? You can see that there's actually a green plant growing on the left. Yeah. And what happens if you take another step further back to look at a bigger picture? The date branch is actually not date, it's a tree. And it's a tree that's been shaped by exposure to dryness, strong wind, maybe being struck by thunder. But within this landscape where it looks like it's barren and rocky and no water, the tree actually survives. And it actually looks beautiful. It's like a bonsai. So a lot of times the way that we view things depends on the perspective. And if we're able to take a step back and see things from a different angle, we can see things differently. I'd like to introduce you to this curve called the Yerkes-Dodson Human Performance and Stress Curve. The vertical axis measures performance, and the horizontal axis is a measurement of the amount of stress. Yeah, you can see that as the stress increases, performance also increases. And there is actually a level of stress where the performance is optimal. And within this zone, the person feels energized, focused, and work feels effortless. That's what we call being in the flow. But once you're past this level of stress, the person starts to feel fatigue, exhausted, in ill health, and maybe start to break down. So there's an optimal level of stress where the performance is optimal. And what resilience helps to do is to try to keep people within the optimal zone. Now, the other interesting thing about this graph is that it's not the same for all people. Okay, so another person might operate within the same stress level with a lower level of performance. Yeah. Another person might have a high level of performance, but his stress tolerance is less. He's able to operate within a smaller range of stress. Yeah. So it's different for different people. And the other thing is that even for the same person, it may be different at different times in the life. And person may cope better later on if they have gone through an experience and learned from it, if they have learned new skills and new knowledge. I will talk about the 5 pillars of resilience. There are many ways to present the topic, and I found that these 5 pillars of resilience actually summarizes it very well. And the 5 pillars of resilience are self-care, self-awareness, purpose, mindfulness, and relationships. For those of you who are interested in finding more about the 5 pillars of resilience, this concept is developed by the Bounce Back Project. That's the website that links to it, and you can actually link to the website through this QR code. I'm actually quite proud of myself because for this lecture, I actually learned how to convert this web address into this QR code. So this was actually done by me. So maybe at this point, we could just take a short moment to reflect a little bit. How often do I try to learn new things? The first pillar of resilience is self-care. And self-care is any activity that we do in order to take care of our mental, emotional, and physical health so that we can function more effectively while being able to meet the challenges in our life. And again, if you want to understand a bit more about self-care, just scan the QR code. So this is the way the session is structured. Because of the time constraint, I'm not able to talk about some of the points in great detail, but I've searched the internet for relevant websites that give fairly good information, and I've provided the link for you all to go to so that you can find out more about each particular topic in more detail later on. So during pandemic period, there are ways that we can look after ourselves. And I like this poster because the way that it phrases it is to be kind to yourself. And we can be kind to ourselves by making sure that we take time to look after ourselves, that we find opportunities to engage in relaxation and breathing techniques, that before we go to bed at night, we try to think of good things, 3 good things that we have achieved each day. The problem with a lot of people is they go to bed feeling frustrated, feeling scared, feeling anxious, and that can affect their sleep. So if we go to bed thinking of good things, it's more likely that you have a good sleep and good dreams. We can find activities to do which provide ourselves with a sense of pleasure and achievement. Yeah. And we can be aware of our negative thoughts and how it affects us and try to change those thoughts. It's common to make mistakes. So one way to be kind to ourselves is to accept that we have made a mistake and to move on from there. We should also try to focus on things that are within our control rather than on things that we cannot control. We should not put pressure on ourselves to try to get everything done or to get everything perfect. Essentially, what we need to do is to slow down and take our time to engage and enjoy the activities that we are doing. And finally, to recognize our own positive qualities so that we can develop our own positive qualities. Okay. Why do we need to be kind to ourselves? As a psychiatrist, sad to say, a lot of the people that I encounter are not kind to themselves. They have a lot of negative thoughts within the mind. I'm not good enough. I'm a bad person. I feel like I don't deserve anything. I'm a horrible person. I hate myself. I make mistakes. I hurt people. So a lot of people are not kind to themselves and they have these negative thoughts. So it is important to be kind to ourselves, to have more positive thoughts about ourselves. Again, a QR code to link to a website that shows you how to be kind to yourself. It's important to put a top priority to taking care of yourself and to be kind to yourself. I think the analogy is like on an airplane, when the plane is crashing and the oxygen mask drop down, you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. And once you have made sure that you are safe and you don't faint because you don't have any oxygen, then you can start to look after the people around you, the young children around you. So self-care is important in this respect, that you have to look after yourself before you can look after or help people around you. The next pillar of self-care is self-awareness. It's having, the next pillar of resilience is self-awareness. Self-awareness is having a clear perception and understanding of yourself, including your strength, your weakness, your thoughts, your beliefs, your motivations, and your emotions. And having self-awareness allows you to understand other people and how they perceive you, your attitude and your responses to them in the moment. Because part of resilience is being able to adapt to how other people are thinking and feeling. The third pillar of resilience is mindfulness. Mindfulness is getting uh, more people are interested in mindfulness. There's a lot of research going on. There's a lot of courses being offered on mindfulness. It's coming into medicine. They're using mindfulness to treat medical conditions, pain, and things like that, stress and pain. So mindfulness is a state of active, open attention on the present moment. And when you're mindful, you're able to observe your thoughts and feelings without judging them. And this goes back to the earlier discussion about kindness. A lot of times we judge ourselves, we are not kind to ourselves. So if you're mindful, you are able to observe your own thoughts and feelings without being too judgmental about them. But a lot of people let the life pass them by regretting about the past and worrying about the future. So to be mindful means you are living in the current moment and awakening to the current present experience. So mindfulness is a skill that can be learned. There's a lot of web resources that teach you about mindfulness. And again, here is a QR code that links to one of those websites. The fourth pillar of resilience is having positive relationships. And these are connections with people who support and care for us. And we also care for them. And by having positive relationship with other people, we will be happier and feel more supported and connected. And the last pillar of resilience is having a sense of purpose. It's a recognition that we belong to and serve something bigger than ourselves. And our purpose helps to shape the mindset and attitude that we have towards others and the events that affect us. And purpose can be found in our family, our friends, our community, our beliefs, our hobbies, or any other worthwhile cause. And to know more about values, here's another QR code linking you to a website that talks about purpose. Okay, so the question comes, is it possible for us to develop a resilient mindset? Yeah. And I thought one way to do it is through storytelling, and there's some interesting stories coming up. Okay, the first story is called The Jade Student. And this takes place in ancient China. There's a young man who wanted to learn about jade. He wanted to set up shop to sell jade, and he wanted to be known as a jade expert. So he went to look for a jade master, the most famous jade master in the whole country, and asked to be accepted as a student. And the jade master accepted him. So on the first day, the student went excitedly, eagerly, hoping to learn about jade. So the jade master gave him a piece of jade to hold. And after that, the Jade Master started talking about a lot of things. He talked about politics, art, poetry, music, literature. He talked about everything, but he never talked about jade. And the student was a bit puzzled. He says, I came to learn about jade. How come this teacher never tell me anything about jade at all? But he was patient, and he came back the next day. And the Jade Master still did the same thing, gave him a piece of jade to hold, and started talking about everything else except jade. And the days turned into weeks, the weeks turned into months, and the student was puzzled, getting a bit impatient, but he still persevered and kept on going back to the Jade Master. But finally, 1 year was almost up, and the student became very angry and disappointed. I've wasted my time. 1 whole year I came here and I never learned about jade. Every day he just asked me to hold a piece of jade and he just talks about all these stupid stories. Today, if he doesn't tell me, if he doesn't teach me about jade, I will scold him and tell him off, and I'll go and look for a better teacher. So the student sat down, and the Jade Master put a piece of green stone into his hand, and the student was very angry. He was about to jump up and scold the Jade Master, but the words that came up when the stone touched his hand was, "This is not jade." Okay, so what do you make out of this story? What lesson can you pick up from this story? Okay. So you can put your responses, input your responses into the chat, and the team will consolidate these responses and show them on the screen. Okay, great. So some responses that you can see. To be patient, do not be fixated on one part of life. He actually learned something, so his time wasn't wasted. He has the knowledge after his perseverance. To learn about something, you have to experience it. So great. Thanks for all those responses. Those are great responses. Yeah. There's actually a second part to this story. So he actually graduated from the course, and he went and set up his own shop and started selling jade. And you know, the people in those days in ancient China, when they came to buy jade, there'll be the people who are more well off, more literate. And instead of applying sales tactics to these people, oh, this one on bargain, 50% discount, buy now. He talked to them about art and culture and music and politics and geography. And the customers, the clients, respected him and liked him. They say this is a very knowledgeable jade seller who's able to talk about art and culture and things like that. So you can tell from the responses that there's a lot of learning points. And for me, the learning point for myself is that the useful lesson or experience can be learned anywhere as long as you keep an open mind. Okay, let's come to the second story, the eagle claw student. Yeah. You know, the eagle claw kung fu skill is, if you watch kung fu shows, it's one of the more powerful kung fu skills where the hands become like the claws of an eagle. So this young man wanted to learn the eagle claw kung fu skill, and he went to the teacher and asked to be accepted as a disciple, and he was accepted and taken in. But instead of learning the eagle claw kung fu, the master sent him to the river to wash the clothes for everyone in the school. So he was with the women washing the clothes. And every day he would wash the clothes. And you know, when you wash the clothes, you have to twist them to squeeze the water out. So he spent a lot of time twisting the clothes to squeeze the water out. Yeah. And it got a little bit boring. So sometimes he would become playful. He would take the clothes and he would twist it and he would flick at the women to disturb them. So for about a year, he was doing this, and he never learned the eagle claw skill. But he was patient and he was humble and he was perseverant. So he continued to do this. He didn't complain that he was being humiliated, sent along with the women to wash the clothes and things like that. One day, a group of bandits came to the river and they wanted to kidnap the women. So when the first bandit stretched out his hand to grab the woman, the student responded automatically by grabbing his arm and twisting it the way that he twisted the clothes dry, and he broke the bandit's arm. Another bandit came along with a sword, and the student took a piece of scarf and twisted it and flicked it at the bandit and hit him in the face, and the bandit dropped his sword. So in the end, the student defeated all the bandits and saved the women who were washing the clothes. Okay, what insight or lessons can you learn from this? Again, please input into the chat and we'll consolidate and show them. So one can learn skills that seem inapplicable but can prove very useful. What we can learn often is through doing something else. There are lessons in everything we do. Indirectly, we can learn skills. Learning is everywhere. Okay, great responses. Yeah. Thanks everyone for those responses. I think you are getting the knack of it, and you are able to reflect and develop your own insight. For me, my learning insight was with background knowledge and experience, resources are available to be called upon in times of need, and with humility and a willingness to persevere, skills can be developed. Okay. I hope it's okay with you all that I just tell stories and you reflect and develop your own insight. I think that's the best way to learn. Okay, the third story, the old man loses his horse. This is an old Chinese story. There was an old man who owned a fine horse, and his neighbors would come by and they would uh, come to his door, or they would peep over the fence and they would tell him, oh, you've got a fine horse, you've got a really great horse, you are so lucky. And the old man would just smile and stroke his beard and reply, maybe, maybe not. One day the horse ran away, and the neighbors came and they peeped over the fence and they came to his door and they said, oh, you know, your horse ran away, really bad luck. You've lost such a fine horse. And the old man smiled and stroked his beard and said, maybe, maybe not. Then a few days later, the horse came back and it brought another horse back. So I think it went out to look for a girlfriend and came back with a girlfriend. And the neighbors all came around and they congratulated the old man. You know, it's so lucky, you know, your horse ran away and came back with another horse, and now you've got two horses. The stars are shining on you, the gods are blessing you. And the old man smiled and stroked his beard and said, maybe, maybe not. Now the old man's son sat on the new horse and fell off the horse and broke both his legs and couldn't walk, had to be bedridden. And the neighbors came around and said, oh, you know, it's such bad luck, you know, really sway, you know. Your son fell off this horse and now he's broken both his legs, he's going to be a cripple. And the old man smiled and stroked his beard and said, maybe, maybe not. A few weeks later, you know, this is ancient times where there was a lot of war and fighting going on. The country went to war, and all the able-bodied young men were forced to join the army, and a lot of them didn't survive the war. But the old man's son survived because of his broken legs. He wasn't conscripted into the army. And when the war was over, his legs recovered and he could walk as normal. Now, what's the insight, the learning point that you have from this story? Okay, so a lot of insights coming in. That's good and bad. It's how one sees it. Judgment is something bad can be a blessing in disguise. Judgment is a matter of perspective. Blessing and disguise, sometimes a loss can be a win. Whatever happens, happens, and don't let it affect you too much. Good thing, bad thing, who knows? Do not judge the moment. Life events happen. It's how we view them that makes a difference. So again, very great insights. I think you're all learning from the stories. Yeah. Thanks. So a lot of great insights and thoughts from you all. So for me, the learning point for myself is remain calm no matter what happens. Don't be too reactive. Don't be affected by circumstances. As a lot of you have said, what's good may turn out to be bad. What's bad may turn out to be good. But most importantly, is not to be affected by what other people say. Yeah. Okay. My fourth story. It is good. Yeah. So we move away from ancient China, and we go to Africa. Yeah. So there's a tribe with a king and a minister, and the minister, no matter what happens, whether it is good or bad, he would just smile and say, it is good. So he keeps his calm, and no matter what happens, the minister will say, it is good. So one day the king went out hunting, and there was a hunting accident, and he lost his hand. So when he came back to the court, everyone was in panic, everyone was crying, oh, our king has lost his hand in the hunting accident, it's a disaster, it's bad. But the minister just smiled and say, it is good. And the king was so angry with him that he threw the minister into jail, and the minister stayed in jail for several weeks. Yeah. And the king's recovered from the injury, and he went out hunting again. And this time around, the king and his group of hunters were captured by another tribe. And this other tribe, cannibals, they eat people. So all the hunters who were with the king were eaten up. But the group of cannibals had a strange custom. People, the prey, the people that they captured who are not perfect will be rejected. They won't eat them. It's like the way we go to supermarket and we see an apple with a bruise and we don't buy that apple. So the king was not eaten because he was imperfect. He was missing a hand. So the cannibals released him and he came back to the court. And everyone was very happy. Say, oh, our king has come back to us. It's a blessing. Let's celebrate. And the king realized that losing his hand wasn't so bad after all. And he felt sorry that he threw the minister into jail. So he immediately went to release the minister out from jail and said sorry to the minister. That, oh, I'm so sorry. You're such a wise man, but I threw you into jail and you had to rot in jail for such a long time. I'm really, really sorry about this. And the minister replied, it is good. And the king was puzzled and asked, why was it good that I threw you into jail and you were rotting there for such a long time? Because if I wasn't in jail, I would have gone hunting with you and I would have been eaten. Yeah. So again, please share your thoughts and insights on this story. Okay, again, fantastic responses. Be optimistic. Something unfortunate may be a blessing. Look on the bright side, blessing in disguise. All things work out for good. Stay positive in times of adversity. Good things happen to a positive mind. Attitude is important. There's always a silver lining. Faith is important. Don't judge too soon the situation and decide consequences. Okay, so great responses. Yeah. So for myself, the learning points is no matter how bad things seem to be, there's always a bright side. Approach things with humor. I think I left that out. And I think this is an important point. There's no such thing as perfection. I think what happens with a lot of us is that we want things to be perfect. We want a perfect job. We want a perfect job. We want a perfect face. We want a perfect figure, things like that. And if things are not as perfect as we want them to be, we can get very unhappy and upset about this. But the interesting thing is that perfection is a purely human construct. Animals are not concerned about perfection at all. So if you, we expect our pet dogs and pet cats to be perfect, but animals are actually quite happy the way that they look. They don't say, oh, I'm ugly. I've got one eye big, one eye small. Yeah. So there's no such thing as an imperfect cat, only imperfect people offering imperfect opinions. Yeah. And I like this one, the word imperfect actually spells I'm perfect, because everyone is perfect in their own imperfect way. So my learning point from this story is also not to be too fixated on this abstract concept we call perfection, because really nothing is perfect. Okay, this is my last story. Yeah, you know that there is a pandemic, another pandemic going on other than COVID, and the other pandemic is about obesity and the lifestyle diseases. And this is one of my greatest fear, that one day I might become obese. Yeah. And as you know, when you worry or fear for something too much, it may actually happen. And it happened to me. This is me. I've been told not to put my face up because people might take screenshots and show it somewhere else. But it happened to me. Yeah. And I really wanted to keep fit, to lose weight and be healthy. But there was a lot of constraints at that time that I was facing. I was acting HOD, and There was a lot of admin work to do. My children were in school, primary school, and I needed to help them with the schoolwork. And my wife was not happy with me taking time to exercise instead of spending with family and helping with my children's schoolwork. I could exercise at lunch, but when we work, we actually see patients and we don't have a chance to interact with our colleagues. So for me, lunchtime is important to meet up with my colleagues and keep in touch. And what's happening to me at that time also was that I had insomnia, and I would be waking up at 4:30 a.m. in the morning and I can't get back to sleep again. So what I'd like to introduce you all to is that we can have a win-lose way of thinking. Yeah. So for example, if I'm able to sleep, great, I have a good sleep and I feel energized the whole day. But if I can't sleep, then the four-letter words start coming up and I feel frustrated and I say, I can't sleep, I die, a whole day tired, I can't concentrate, get headache, and I'll toss and turn in bed and I feel really horrible. So this is a win-lose way of thinking. If I'm able to sleep, it's a winning. If I can't sleep, it's losing. Yeah. Worse still, when you combine it with my weight gain at that time, I could actually have developed a lose-lose way of thinking. So I can't sleep, it's terrible, four-letter word, I can't sleep, I feel tired, I toss and turn in bed. And if I don't have time to exercise, I can't do it, I have no time, I just need to be overweight and accept that. So this is a lose-lose way of thinking. Is it possible to actually reframe that and think of a win-win way of thinking? So for me, the win-win way of dealing with this situation is that if I'm able to sleep, great, I can have a good sleep and I feel energized the whole day. And if I can't sleep, great, I use this time to exercise. And this allows me to work within all the constraints that I had earlier on. Yeah. So this is what happened. I wake up at 4:30, I can't sleep, and I jog around my neighborhood. And this was where I was staying at that time. And I'll be jogging next to the MRT track. And then I make a round and I come back and do another round. Yeah. Now, the interesting thing about this, this is at about 5 a.m. in the morning. So when I go out jogging, my first thought and my first action of the day is towards personal wellness and fitness. A lot of the people that I meet on the way going towards the MRT station are smoking. So for them, their first thought and the first action is one that leads towards poorer health. So I think that's important, that when we wake up or when we try to do things, we should focus our mind on achieving things that are good for us, helpful for us, for our own health. Yeah. So I was waking up and jogging regularly, and I was also going to the gym. Fortunately, my workplace had a gym that opened at 6 o'clock, and I go to the gym at 6 o'clock and start working out. And I managed to lose the weight. Okay, so what's the insight and learning points for you from this personal story that I shared? Okay, again, fantastic responses, to be persistent, to want to do something and persevere on doing it, to have the right mindset and be focused, to stay calm and healthy and take care of our own self-care. Some people didn't believe it's me. Yeah, it's me. If I take away the smiley face, it's my face. Again, I've been told by the organizers, you sure you want to share that? People can take screenshot and you'll be on the social media. So I said, okay, better cover my face. Yeah. Positive thought and focused mind on achieving things towards our own health and well-being. How to turn a lose-lose situation into a win-win situation. Think positively. Yeah. Again, fantastic, great responses from everyone. So for me, the lesson that I learned is how to reframe and think win-win instead of win-lose or lose-lose. Yeah. And reframing means I take the same situation and the same circumstances and give those facts a different meaning. And this different meaning allows us to take a different approach and gives us new possibilities for the action that we might take. So reframing is about changing the perception by understanding something in another way. There's actually a part 2 to this story. So in my effort to be keep fit, I actually had an accident in the gym. Something heavy fell on my leg, and I ended up with a fractured ankle, and I had to go for surgery. So this is really me, and this is not a stage photo for your benefit. I'm actually in hospital, and I think this is one day after my surgery, and this is the X-ray of my ankle. You can see the broken bone. And after the surgery, you see that it can be fixed. Yeah. So this derailed my fitness plan. I couldn't go jogging. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't walk. I was on crutches for like 6 months. So how did I manage to keep fit during that time? I went to the swimming pool and on crutches. I put my crutches down at the side of the swimming pool and I got into the water and I swam laps. And the swimming actually was good for my ankle because the just by kicking and letting my ankle move to propel me in the water, I was actually improving the flexibility of my ankle. The other thing that I did, I couldn't go to the gym and do weights anymore. So what I did was I walked with my crutches to the fitness corner near my house, and I just did pull-ups on the pull-up bar. And when my leg got a little bit better, I started doing push-ups also. So I was on crutches. I couldn't do my usual exercises, but I went to the pool. I went and did pull-ups and push-ups. And this is what I was able to do because I was focusing on other exercises that I could do. This was the outcome. Due to shortage of time, I won't ask you all to input anything. I just share that the lesson I learned was that the unexpected may happen, and there's more than one way to reach your goal. Okay, so just to summarize, this is the human performance and stress curve, that there is actually an optimal level of stress where our performance is optimal. Different people have different stress tolerance, and at different times in a person's life, the stress tolerance may be different. Yeah. And this is the 5 pillars of resilience: self-care, self-awareness, purpose, mindfulness, and relationships. And the most important, the things that we need to focus on is self-care. That should be given top priority. And finally, developing a resilient mindset. For me, my own insight and take-home point is the useful lesson or experience can be shared, can be learned anywhere. With background knowledge and experience and training, resources are available to be used in times of need. Important to remain calm, not to be too reactive or affected by circumstances or what other people say. No matter how bad things can seem to be, there's always a bright side, and we should reframe, think win-win, and there's more than one way to reach your goal. Yeah. So that is the end of my talk for today. I'd like to thank all of you for listening and for your contributions towards the survey and the learning points.